The inspection chamber space station Virelianine, orbiting neutral space. 4:08 UTC. The inspection chamber was cold not in temperature, but in tone. Polished obsidian walls hummed with an alien pulse, a rhythm far too organic for steel. Eli Mercer stood at the center, arms stiff at his sides, heart beating harder than it should have been for a man trained in diplomacy. He'd reviewed the protocols a dozen times. Human-alien contact regulation 13B. If a diplomatic envoy requests asylum or consular bonding under Old World law, the host representative must conduct a formal inspection to assess honesty, health, and intent. Except this wasn't Old World law as anyone on Earth understood it. This was Geran law, from a species that shared 94% DNA with humans, but differed in the 6% that mattered most. The Geran legal system was ancient, rigid, and cloaked in ceremony, and somehow, the inspection involved. Ayla stood in front of him. She was tall, her posture unnervingly still. Her skin shimmered faintly under the chamber lightspale, blue under a thin, almost translucent robe that resembled liquid glass. Her eyes, massive and violet, didn't blink. They watched him like a flame would watch dry leaves. "You've read the procedure," said the AI interpreter behind him, its voice cold, clipped. "Begin." "I just want to make sure she understands her rights," Eli said. Turning partially to the AI, she requested the inspection. Human Mercer. To deny her now would be a violation of interspecies protocol. His jaw clenched. This was a test. It had to be. Or worse, a trap. Isla stepped forward. "I understand," she said quietly. Her voice was soft, musical, but deliberate. "I request the inspection." In full, Eli swallowed hard. "Are you sure?" She tilted her head. "Do you fear me?" "I don't even know you," he replied. "That is what the inspection is for," she said, and began to unclasp the folds of her robe. "No, wait," Eli said, holding out a hand. "We can do this symbolically. Exchange of genetic markers, blood, saliva, retina scan. That's enough for trust declaration, isn't it?" She paused. Then slowly, she let her robe fall away. It didn't pull, it shimmered into nothing, dissolving, like fog in sunlight. She stood bare before him, unashamed, more like a statue than a person. Her body was humanoid, yes, but alien in its symmetry, too perfect, too still. Eli looked away. "This isn't diplomacy." Isla stepped closer. "Your world thinks truth is words. Mine knows better. When we stand unguarded, when there is nothing left to hide, then we may speak." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "And what do you want to speak about?" She leaned closer, her voice nearly a whisper now. "I want to stay." Eli blinked. "Stay? On the station? With you?" she said, permanently. His mind reeled. This was wrong. She was Geran, an envoy, not a refugee. They didn't ask for sanctuary. They didn't fall into human rituals, let alone emotional attachments. Unless a harsh click split the air. The walls turned crimson. The AI's voice thundered. "Protocol breach. Host has failed inspection sequence. Subject Ayla will be detained immediately. Human Mercer, stand down." Eli spun around. "What?" "No, wait." She initiated the ritual. But the walls were already sealing. Red barriers of energy cut across the exits. From the ceiling, glimmering drones descended, metallic, spiders with glowing red cores. Eli turned back. Ayla was gone. He backed away instinctively. Where did she go? How? There were no exits, only the robe, folded neatly on the floor. The AI's voice returned, colder now. "Host Mercer, prepare for questioning. Your actions have violated Interplanetary Accord, Section 42. You are now under observation." He barely heard it, because lying on the floor, beneath the folds of the vanished robe, was something new, something alien. A small, crystal-shaped chip glowing faintly blue, pulsing, in sync with his heartbeat. 4 hours earlier, Docking Bay 17. "You're not trained for this," Commander Hillier warned, walking briskly beside Eli down the sterile corridor. "I'm not trained for what exactly?" "Talking to someone," he asked, keeping pace. "Geran inspections aren't talking. They're ancient, symbolic, borderline religious. I read the treaty. I'm the only fluent Huron speaker in this sector." Hillier stopped, turning to face him. "This isn't about language. It's about their intentions. The last time someone invoked inspection law, a war almost broke out." Eli softened. "I'll follow the rules. I just need to see her face, read her expression. That's what diplomacy is." Hillier understanding the parts they don't put in words. You think she came here by accident. I think she came for a reason. Present time observation cell Alpha 6. The interrogation room was darker than the chamber. Dim green light bathed the floor. Eli sat alone. The drones had stripped his communicator and diplomatic badge. Only the chip remained tucked into his palm. The door hissed open. 2 figures stepped inside. One human, one Jaren. The human wore the insignia of Central Diplomatic Security. The Jaran, robed and veiled, didn't speak. Eli Mercer, the human said, voice sharp. You have violated diplomatic sanctity by mishandling a Class 7 exchange. Do you deny initiating a physical inspection without protocol confirmation? I didn't initiate anything. She did. She's missing. I know, he said flatly, and I didn't help her escape. The Jaren delegate stepped forward. She raised a long, pale hand, and for a moment, Eli felt heat ripple through the air. She is not missing, the Jaren said in a voice like wind through dry leaves. She is with you. I can feel her. Eli's fingers curled tighter around the chip. I don't know where she is. The Jaren delegate tilted her head. Slowly. Then, perhaps, you don't know who she is. Elsewhere, ventilation shaft 19 Bella crawled silently through the warmth of the ship's lungs. Her skin flickered, shifting color with every pulse. She'd used the room's energy signature to veil her escape, an old Jaren trick. They'd think she evaporated. She hadn't. Her breathing was shallow, weak. The inspection didn't go as planned, but she'd known it wouldn't, because the moment she saw Eli Mercer, she recognized him not by name, not by file, by instinct. He was the one. She touched her side. The implant chip was gone, planted, as planned. She closed her eyes. Please, understand, please. Protocol 7, Observation Cell, Alpha 6, Verelianine Station, 446, UTC. The walls seemed closer now. Eli sat unmoving under the sterile glow of the overhead light, his fingers still pressed around the glowing chip, hidden just out of view. Beneath the table, it hadn't stopped pulsing, not once, since Arla disappeared. Across from him, the human officer, Commander Linnet, of Central Diplomatic Security. Lend, in your withholding information, she said flatly. We've reviewed the chamber's logs. She spoke to you, touched you. Something passed between you two. What was it? I already told you. I don't know, Eli lied, knowing full well the chip in his hand might be more valuable than a peace treaty. The Jaren delegate beside her, the robed female with glinting emerald eyes, hadn't spoken in minutes, but now she did. You do not understand what you have accepted, she murmured. She invoked the right of binding. It is not a negotiation, it is a claim. Eli frowned. She said she wanted to stay. That's not a binding agreement. Your kind hears the words, she said. But the law was written before your species spoke. To receive her willingly, even in confusion, is to consent. You are now her sanctuary. Linnet stiffened, which violates Protocol 7. Eli's brow furrowed. What the hell is Protocol 7? The delegate turned toward him slowly. It is the clause that declares any human who is chosen by a fugitive, Jaren, becomes, by default, a threat to interspecies neutrality. Linnet tapped the table. In other words, you're harboring an intergalactic fugitive, Eli, that makes you an enemy of both governments. He leaned back, stunned. You're serious? She fled her people. She passed her genetic code into your custody. And then, she vanished from a high-security chamber. That doesn't happen by accident. I didn't help her escape. Linnet gave him a cold look. Then prove it. Where is she? He looked down at the chip, glowing softly in his hand. He didn't know what was inside it yet, but something told him the truth wouldn't save him. It would burn everything down. So instead, he met Linnet's eyes and said nothing. Medical Bay Gamma, hidden sectorala, stumbled into a side corridor, pressing a trembling hand to the wall. For balance, her skin flickered with distorted colors. Her heartbeat was erratic. The atmospheric filters here weren't tuned for her biology. Too much nitrogen. Not enough hydrogen ions. She had minutes. She reached a panel and touched it. The wall shimmered and opened, revealing a hidden alcove, a decommissioned stasis pod. Dust covered the surface. She slid inside and shut the hatch. Within the pod, oxygen levels adjusted. Lights dimmed. Temperature fell. She exhaled slowly and closed her eyes. Her mind drifted. To him. To Eli Mercer. She had watched his file for weeks before arriving. Earth's diplomatic team thought they chose him. They hadn't. She did. not because of his skills, but because he carried a genetic trace, a dormant echo of something ancient. Her ancestor's last memory was of a human's hand reaching for her, shielding her from fire. That memory lived in Ayla now, and the human face she'd seen in that vision looked like Eli. He doesn't know what he carries, he thought, and he wasn't supposed to, until now. Central Diplomatic Command, 510, UTC. Lynette paced before the High Council room. She was furious. What do you mean we can't detain him indefinitely? She snapped. Admiral Reyes, a stoic Earth official in a black-trimmed uniform, responded calmly. Because he hasn't been proven guilty. The inspection was a ruse. She passed something to him. We saw it. Then she vanished. That's premeditated espionage. The Giron delegate stepped forward again. Or prophecy, she said. If she invoked the right of binding, she may be following a path written in her ancestors' memories. That law predates both of our governments. Reyes rubbed his temples. God, I hate when the aliens bring up ancient prophecy in a legal proceeding. Lynette crossed her arms. So, what do you want us to do? Let them finish their interspecies love ritual and send us a wedding invitation. She didn't bond to him romantically, the Jaren replied. She bound her future to him. There's a difference. Reyes finally stood. Enough. If the girl's still aboard, we'll find her. And if Mercer's hiding anything, we'll break him. Observation, Cell Alpha 6519, UTC. The moment the door shut behind the officers, Eli sprang to his feet. He slipped the chip into the table's scanning slot. The panel flickered. Processing. A whisper of code flooded the screen. Lines of alien script appeared delicate, flowing like water. His neural translator struggled to keep up. Genetic core. Data seed for 81Z Alpha archive content. Jaren Sanctuary record warning. Contents may alter diplomatic allogenemian Ts. Then the first image loaded. It wasn't text. It was a video, a grainy, ancient but unmistakably real. A younger Jaren female, Layla's ancestor, or perhaps Ayla herself, stood beside a human. They spoke softly in a forgotten dialect. Behind them, warships clashed across the stars. The caption appeared. Last known union of the Jaren and humanity, terminated by betrayal. Evidence preserved. Another file opened. Schematics of Project Lyra, a joint human-Aran colony, erased from all records. Eli sat down slowly, breath catching in his throat. This was why she ran. This was what she passed to him. This was the secret no one wanted out. Medical Bay Gamma, 532. Utkyla stirred in the pod. Her breath now steadier. She could feel it through the bond. He had opened the file. He knew suddenly. The pod lights flashed red. She gasped. They'd found her. Security Corridor 534. UTC Linett's voice echoed through the comms. All units. Medical Gamma. We have a heat signature, likely her. Non-lethal engagement only. We need her alive. Armed guards stormed the corridors, but someone was already moving ahead of them. Eli Mercer. He didn't know how, but he followed the signal in the chip. It pulsed stronger the closer he got. Down past the locked hallways, past the disabled terminals. He reached the pod just as it began to open. Ayla collapsed into his arms. You came, she whispered. I don't know why, he replied, but I couldn't leave you. Alarms echoed behind them. Footsteps. Can you walk? I can run, she said, pushing herself upright. They bolted down the corridor, dodging plasma nets, sliding under sensor beams. The chip lit the path. A maintenance tunnel opened. They disappeared inside, just as security arrived. Too late to follow. Unknown subdeck. Minutes later, Ellie leaned against the wall, catching his breath. What the hell is this? He asked, holding up the chip. Ayla looked at him with something close to grief. Everything my people destroyed. Everything your people buried. We were once allies. The stars belonged to both of us. Project Lyra, she nodded. A colony where our kinds could live as one. But when fear took hold, both governments erased it. My ancestor died trying to keep its memory alive. And now it lives in me. Eli looked at her. He had no reason to believe her, and yet, every instinct said she was telling the truth. You said they sent you to betray me. She lowered her head. They did. I was trained to manipulate you, seduce if needed, find out if your government still remembered Lyra. And did we? She shook her head. Your leaders forgot. But you remembered. Not in your mind, but in your blood. Eli frowned. What are you saying? I chose you, Eli, because you carry the last trace of him. Of who? She stepped forward. The human who died beside my ancestor. You are his descendant. The Descensive Deck 12 Restricted Maintenance Zone. 5:50 UTC. The emergency lights flickered overhead as Eli and Ayla descended deeper into the mechanical bowels of Virelianine. Steam hissed from broken valves, casting thin veils of fog across the narrow corridor. Metal groaned above them, like the station itself was unsettled. Eli kept a hand on the wall for balance, the other holding tightly to the chip. Ayla limped slightly beside him, her breathing shallow. This far below, she said, voice echoing, no eyes watch. No rules apply. You're sure about that? Eli said, glancing back. Security's got drones, and dogs now, probably. She turned, stopping him with a light touch. This place was built over something old. Before your kind ever stepped here. Eli frowned. You mean this station? She nodded. No one remembers what's buried beneath. But we do. That's where we must go. He didn't ask how she knew. Ever since he touched the chip, the same strange knowing had begun to flicker through his thoughts, tool-like muscle memory for a place he'd never seen. They reached a sealed door, rusted, ancient. A console blinked, amber beside it. Ayla pressed her palm to the pad. A thin thread of light scanned her skin. Access granted. Jaren identifier confirmed. Welcome, descendant. The door groaned and split open with a breathless hiss. A stairwell spiraled downward, into darkness. Meanwhile, command center. Virelianine commander. Lynette stood over a projection of the station's levels. Two red dots blinked at the very edge of the lower schematic. There in the dead zone, a technician muttered. Lynette narrowed her eyes. That level was sealed after the breach. No oxygen, no surveillance, no exits. So they're trapped? Asked Admiral Reyes, watching from the central console. Worse, said the Jaren delegate. Her voice was grave. Reyes turned. What do you mean? She looked directly at him. If they reach the core, they might remember what we've all worked so hard to forget. Sublevel 13, the dead zone. It didn't feel like the rest of the station. As Eli and Ayla stepped through the archway, the corridor beneath them changed from steel to something older stone, etched with bioluminescent lines that pulsed like veins. Eli blinked. This isn't part of the original construction. No, Ayla said. It was buried before the station was built. He scanned the wall symbols in both human Latin and Jaren glyphs intertwined, telling a story in two tongues. What is this place? She stopped before a massive sealed chamber, hands trembling. The last sanctuary of Lyra. She reached into her chest wrap and withdrew a second, crystal smaller than the first. She fitted into a recessed slot on the wall. The door vibrated. Lights shimmered, then silence, and then it opened. Inside the chamber a domed room greeted them, enormous, breathtaking. Trees that glowed with inner light grew through metal grates. Stasis pods lined the walls, long dead. At the center stood a platform with a spiral holograph, frozen mid-animation. Eli stepped forward. Slowly. Images sprang to life above him. Humans and Jarens working together, building. Laughing, holding hands, planting crystals into the soil. What is this? Eli asked, voice breaking slightly. Ela's voice softened. The memory of what we once were, before the purge. Another image appeared. Earth generals signing a treaty, Jaren elders in mourning. Then explosions, pods failing, fires across green skies, a war neither side admitted ever happened. You weren't just allies, Eli said. You were family. She nodded, tears in her eyes. They erased it all. Declared the Lyra project a threat to sovereignty. Said interspecies union would weaken the bloodlines. They killed them, Eli whispered. They buried the truth, she said. But not all of it. My ancestor encoded it in our bloodlines. That's why I found you. The chip in Eli's pocket pulsed again. Flashback memory. Lyra colony. 200 years ago. Through Eli's eyes, a new scene burst to life. It wasn't a hologram. It was a memory his, but not. A young man identical to Eli stood beside a Jerone woman in a lush garden under twin moons. I don't care what the council says, he said. I choose you. She smiled, pressing her forehead to his. Then we seal it. Two crystals exchanged hands, glowing, binding. And then gunfire. Explosions. The memory ended with him shielding her from a falling blast door, his final act. Back to present. Eli staggered, gasping. I saw it. I felt it. It was real. Isla said, gently holding him. You carry his memory. Why me? Why not someone else? Because you still feel, she said. Because somewhere deep down, your soul remembered what his did. Sudden interruption, intrusion detected. A blast shook the chamber. The roof splintered, debris rained down. Above, Lynette's voice barked through a speaker. Stand down, Mercer. You've entered a classified zone. Surrender now. Eli looked at Isla. She reached into the platform and pulled out the crystal core. Suddenly, the room shuddered, and from the platform, an ancient beacon activated, sending a pulse through the station. Every screen flickered. Every system, REBOOTED. That then, a message. Project Lyra signal reactivated. All archival records unlocked. Truth restored, Lynette shouted. Shut it down. Now. Too late. Across the galaxy, long-forgotten servers stirred. Histories blinked into life. Hidden documents brought to the core worlds. Every lie. Undone. Final moments of Part 3. As the dust settled, Eli stood over the platform. The chip was gone, melted into the beacon. Isla stood beside him, her face calm. You did it, he whispered. No, she said, placing a hand over his heart. We did. Footsteps approached from above. Armed guards. Lynette's voice, furious. You'll answer for this. Eli turned slowly. No, you will. Enemies of the Truth Virilionine Station. Lyra, chamber, perimeter, 612 UTC blinding. White lights flooded the chamber entrance as tactical boots slammed down onto ancient stone. Commander Lynette stood at the front of the strike unit. Plasma weapon, drawn behind her. Armored security personnel filed in with tactical precision, each one aimed and ready. In the center of the room, Eli stood still, arms out, hands empty. Beside him, Isla held the Lyra crystal core against her chest, its glow pulsing like a second heart. You are both under arrest for the unauthorized activation of a sealed artifact, breach of interspecies protocol, and inciting a historical destabilization event. Lynette barked. Eli didn't flinch. You mean exposing the truth? Lynette narrowed her eyes. The truth destabilizes peace. Isla stepped forward, slow but fearless. Peace built on a lie isn't peace, it's control. Lynette turned to her troops. Take them. Weapons. Powered up with a shrill hum. And then belay that order. The voice came from every speaker simultaneously. Deep, calm, authority woven into every syllable. Lynette froze. The soldiers hesitated. Who the hell? She started. A blue hologram materialized beside her. Admiral Reyes, but not livery-coated. To all personnel aboard Virilionine, this message is pre-coded into the station's Lyra systems. If you are hearing this, the truth has been unlocked, and you are no longer under the directives of the false peace treaty. Lyra was real. The union between our peoples was sanctioned and protected until both governments agreed to bury it along with everyone who knew. That ends today. The soldiers looked at each other, unsure. Eli whispered to Ayla. Was that? She nodded. The beacon activated not just memories but contingency truths. This station had its own failsafe built into the Lyra core. Do not fire on the ones who carry the crystal. They are now the stewards of the Lyra Accord. Silence. One by one, the soldiers lowered their weapons. Lynette's face twisted with fury. You fools, don't you see what they've done? This is chaos. A young lieutenant stepped beside her. No, ma'am. This is clarity. Lynette's hand twitched toward her sidearm. Eli stepped forward. Don't. She glared at him. You think this makes you heroes? No, he said. It makes us witnesses. Security Detainment Bay, 715 UTC. Didn't arrest Lynette, but they relieved her of command. The Jeren delegate escorted her to a private chamber, refusing to speak a word. Lynette ranted for hours, but it didn't matter. The beacon had already reached every system tied to VIR. Ilia-9. Eli and Ayla were taken not as prisoners, but as custodians. A new status, one that had no legal precedent. Because Lyra had no precedent, they were escorted quietly to a secure debriefing chamber. Inside waited Reyes, the real one this time. He looked older than he had on the hologram, tired, regret burned in his eyes. You knew, Eli said flatly. I suspected, Reyes replied. When I was young, my father told me stories of a station where humans and aliens shared air and soil. I thought he was senile. Now I realize he was trying to pass on what little was left. Allah stood silent. Eli paced. So what happens? Now are we fugitives, ambassadors, ghosts, Reyes leaned forward. Right now, your symbols. And symbols can burn or build. He placed the device on the table. Every major interspecies hub just received the Lyra transmission. There are protests, celebrations, denials. Worlds will divide. But the people saw it. The truth. Good, Allah said. But truth, Reyes added, comes at a cost. He tapped the table. A holomap appeared, showing several red ships moving through outer sectors. These are Jaren Walklads, not the delegates, the oath. Other ones, the ones who swore Lyra would never rise again. Eli frowned. They're coming here, Reyes nodded. They want the crystal destroyed, and they've given us 12 hours to comply. They'll destroy the entire station. Private quarters later that night, Dealey stared at his reflection in the mirror. His chest still ached not from battle, but from memory. That moment in the Lyra chamber still played in his mind, the warmth of the memory, the grief of sacrifice. His ancestor, her ancestor, a bond sealed in blood and erased in fear, and now, repeated again, in a different form. A knock at the door. Isla entered quietly. She wore a draped garment of flowing black fabric, stitched with thin glowing veins. Traditional Jaren mourning, part ceremonial unity where, "You're quiet," she said. "I don't know what we're supposed to be anymore," Eli admitted. "Symbols, targets, lovers from a past we don't even remember." She stepped closer. "Maybe we're just two people trying to finish what they started." He turned to her. "You're not afraid." "Always," she whispered. "But fear without truth is slavery. You showed me that." They stood close, close enough to feel the breath between them. A gentle energy crackled into space where their fingers hovered, almost touching, and then alert. Jaren Walklads now, in local orbit, communications disrupted, power systems diminished, the lights flickered, and the station shook. Bridge 003, Sirius, clutched the rail as the ship trembled again. "Shields holding, barely," the tactical officer said. "They're targeting R comes first, trying to isolate us." The Jaren delegate, standing near the rear, stared at the readouts with cold fury. "They will not negotiate," she said. "Those ships belong to the trinary blood sect. They seek purification, not diplomacy." Eli and Isla arrived seconds later, eyes drawn to the growing red storm on the main display. A Walklad cruiser loomed massive and jagged, like a blade across the stars. Reyes turned to them. "They want the Lyra core. If we destroy it, maybe they leave." "No," Ayla said firmly. "If we destroy it, they win. Again." "We can't win a war," Eli said. "We don't need to," she replied. "We just need to awaken the others." She pulled the crystal from her robe and pressed it to her chest. It pulsed. The ship trembled again. Suddenly, the comms systems rebooted, not in human signal, not in Jaren code, but in Lyra frequency, all across the stars. Sleeper nodes lit up. Forgotten stations. Archived ships. Voices. Across the galaxy. Simultaneous pulse in deep space. A long abandoned outpost blinked to life. On a colony moon, a hidden archive opened in the dust. On Earth, a child in an abandoned observatory stared as a hologram emerged from a rusted beacon. Project Lyra reawakened. Unity is not lost. It sleeps. The pulse that shook the stars. Virilia 9 station. Central Bridge, 005 UTC. The instant Eli and Isla touched the Lyra interface, everything changed. The control panel erupted in a blinding spiral of light, illuminating the entire bridge with a brilliant, living glow. Circuits groaned. Holograms melted into static and rebuilt themselves in older languages, glyphs, neither fully human nor Jaren. The crystal core fused into the console, spreading its pulse like an awakened heartbeat. A deep thrumming filled the station. Ancient, alive, and then Lyra protocol, awakened, galactic memory network online, across every inhabited star system. Screens blinked to life, transmitting data, images, voices. The truth could no longer be contained. Outer orbit aboard Jaren Walklad Judgment, a flame commander, Visulek, of the Trinary Blood Sect, stared at his flagship's sensors. The Lyra signal had overridden their encrypted channels. His cruise feeds were now flooded with forbidden history images of Jarens and humans living together, building families, founding colonies, symbols of unity they had sworn to erase. "Shut it off," he barked. His technicians tried, failed. "Not a signal," one said in horror. "It's a network." They didn't just broadcast the truth, they restored it. Commander Vasulik snarled. Then we destroy the source. He turned toward the sunburst weapon. Target Virelianine, full discharge. Bridge Virelianine station. The countdown to destruction had begun. Eli and Isla fell to their knees. The energy coursing through their bodies from the Lyra core was overwhelming, hot, bright, and personal. It wasn't just electricity, it was memory, emotion, legacy. Reyes shouted. You've awakened half the galaxy, but we still have a warship charging, a sunburst. Ayla's hands trembled. Her eyes were distant. We need time. We don't have it, Reyes said. We need to evacuate. No, Eli said, barely able to speak. Running won't finish what we started. He turned to the core, fingers still fused to it. There has to be something. And then, the Lyra system spoke again. Defense protocols recognized. Ancestral DNA verified. Vir, Ilia-9. Legacy command transferred. Steward, Eli, Merchant Steward, Ilia Jarina. New terminal rose from the floor. Sleek humming. Ilian Reyes blinked. What? What is that? Eli looked at it. He understood. A Lyra weapon, he whispered. Not of destruction, of memory. The final option, the Lyra weapon, was not a cannon or a missile. It was a truthwave, a consciousness pulse, capable of sending neural signals directly into the minds of all those nearby. Reyes stared at the display. You're going to make them feel it. The war, the betrayal, the love. Isla nodded weakly. We show them what we lived, what they forgot, what they tried to erase. But if you overcharge the core, Reyes said, you won't survive the wave. Eli gripped her hand. We do this together. They stood side by side. And activated the pulse. Jaren warclad. Moments later, every soldier aboard the Judgment of Flame froze as the truth wave struck them. They fell to their knees, screaming not in pain, but in realization. They saw the original Lyra colony. They saw the wedding between a Jaren and a human, exchanging crystals under dual moons. They saw betrayal, children taken, history erased, governments lying. They felt love, loss, truth. And then, they wept. Even Commander Vasulik staggered backward, gripping his chest as something shattered inside him. Why didn't they tell us? He whispered, eyes wide. With rage and guilt, the sunburst countdown halted. Vir Ilia-9 Bridge 019, UTC silence. Then cheers erupted across the bridge as confirmation reports came in from Allied fleets. Warclad retreat initiated. Standing down, Isla collapsed into Eli's arms. He held her tightly. She was shaking, sweat dripping, skin glowing faintly from the overload of energy. Reyes rushed over. You did it. They're standing down. You broadcasted the one thing they couldn't fight, truth with feeling. Eli looked at the monitors. A sea of incoming messages from every quadrant. People asking questions. Others sharing old, forgotten documents. Children being named Lyra. The galaxy wasn't healed, but it had begun to awaken. And that was everything. Later, the Garden Dome. Virelia. 9 weeks passed. The Council restored Virelianine as neutral territory, neither fully human nor Jaren, but something shared, something older. Isla walked barefoot across the garden's crystal floor, breathing the scent of the now-revived flora plants from both their worlds, blooming side by side. Eli approached, holding a datapad. Broadcasts still going. They even picked up your ancestors' final journal. It's trending on 27 worlds. Isla chuckled softly. And yours? He smiled. 1,000 human kids just submitted their genetic profiles to see if they descend from Lyra settlers. Turns out, unity runs deeper than blood. She looked at him seriously. You could go back, be a hero. You too. No, she said. They'll never call me hero. To some, I'm still the proof of betrayal. He reached out, touched her face gently. To me, you're the reason truth still has a voice. She closed her eyes, leaned into his touch. Final scene. One more secret as they sat beneath the glowing tree canopy. Isla pulled something from her robe, final chip, smaller than the others, etched with a symbol Eli hadn't seen before. She placed it into a recess beside the tree. A small projection appeared, fuzzy, grainy. 2 voices. Human, Jaren, their ancestors. If this ever finds you, the human voice said, know that we tried, we loved, and we believed. Not in politics, not in war, but in you. In the future. Eli and Isla sat in silence as the projection faded. I think, Eli said quietly, we just became that future. The final accord Virillion, Central Assembly Hall. 1 month later the Grand Hall hadn't seen a full assembly in over a century. The once dormant chamber now thronged with life diplomats, citizens, and media personnel from across the stars filled every seat and observation port. In the center stood a circular platform of woven metal and crystalline design resurrected from the original Lyra blueprints. On it stood 2 figures that no one could ignore. Eli Mercer, former mechanic, accidental steward, and now symbol of humanity's forgotten unity. Isla, Jaren, exiled envoy, rebel, truth-bearer, and the last living descendant of the Lyra progenitors. A low hum echoed through the dome as the final quorum was called. 1,000 eyes watched. Millions more across the systems tuned in. Admiral Reyes stepped to the center console. Today is not about laws or borders. Today is about truth. A truth buried by fear and power, but uncovered by 2 who refused to let it die. He turned to Eli and Allah. And now, we ask you to finish what began generations ago. Flashback. Lyra colony, 143 years ago in a windswept valley beneath dual moons. 2 lovers, 1 human, 1 Jaren stood hand in hand, surrounded by a gathering of both species. A crystal joined their palms, glowing as it absorbed the rhythm of 2 hearts in harmony. A bond, a pact, a promise. Then darkness. The skies burned, ships descended, and the record cut off. Now rallying. The silence in the chamber was heavy, sacred. Isla stepped forward. We do not come as rulers or prophets, we come as proof that Lyra was real. That love crossed our stars long before politics divided them. That truth cannot be erased, only delayed. Eli followed. You all saw it. The memories, the histories. But those weren't just files, they were lives. And the legacy of those lives deserves a home. He turned to Isla, and she to him. Together, they held up the Lyra crystal. It floated, spinning slowly, and projected a shimmering constellation above the platform, an ancient star map. But this time, updated. New coordinates pulsed. A hidden world. Lyra-prime. Elsewhere, aboard the Trinary sect's flagship. Commander Vesulek watched the broadcast with clenched fists. His mind still echoed with the memories forced upon him by the truth wave. He hated how it made him feel. He hated that he could no longer unsee the humanity in his supposed enemies. But most of all, he hated the silence from his superiors. The collapse of the lie he was sworn to protect. A communication flashed, an offer of reconciliation, a place in the new Lyra Accord. He stared at it, paused, and then powered down his weapons system. Virillion orbit stabilization. Later that night, Eli stood alone, watching the stars through the transparent dome above the station. He had spoken, cried, and fought for everything, but now that it was real, the future scared him more than anything before. What if we are not ready? He muttered to himself. A hand slipped into his. HFY, la. She didn't say anything. She just leaned into him, her forehead resting against his. We weren't ready last time, she said softly. But we still tried. That's what made it beautiful. He chuckled. You sound like your ancestor. I hope I am, she smiled. Final ceremony. Lyra Accord reinstatement. The next day, the first Lyra Accord in over a century was signed between humans, Jarans, and 12 other species who had once been part of the original Unity project, but had hidden in shame or secrecy. Each signed the same clause. We vow to protect memory, to protect love, to protect the right to remember, and the right to choose peace, even when fear demands war. The accord was finalized with a new symbol, not a weapon or a flag, but a tree, planted together by Eli and Ayla, grown from the hybrid seeds found within the Lyra Chamber's final vault. It would bloom with petals from both worlds, glowing faintly in the night, a living reminder. Final scene, Lyra Prime colony. Years later, 2 children, one with bronze skin and hazel eyes, the other with smooth blue scales and silver irises, chased each other through the grass of a new world. They laughed, tripping over exposed roots and rocks, under a sky that held twin moons, just like in the old vision. A plaque stood nearby. Here, where love once began and was buried, it begins again this time. It will not be forgotten. Eli and Isla sat on a nearby ridge, watching the sunrise. The pain, the war, the doubt, it had all led to this. He leaned over. Still think you were just an envoy on a mission? She smirked. Still think you were just a mechanic? They laughed, and kissed, as the sun rose on Lyra Prim. A beacon pulsed above the colony, broadcasting a signal that would never again be silenced. Lyra lives. You are not alone, and love remembers the end.